once again, my name is Dave Gish. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Widefield School District 3. I have many responsibility areas that I help oversee. One of those is growth and trying to monitor growth within the school district. And so anybody that's in this room that has traveled on the other side of Powers knows that we have some growth that happens out east. And so that's been the largest area of growth within Widefield. But we're starting to have some, that's the main areas going to be growing, but we're starting to have some other areas show up. And so a couple of things that we'll talk about here as we continue forward, if I turn this on. All right, so a couple of things real quick before we get into what we think we know. When we're going to see growth? That is the million-dollar question that we all want to know. And so as of probably about 4 months ago, we would have been saying, yes, we're going to have all kinds of growth. It's happening quickly. We need to be ready for it. It's coming right now. And then all of a sudden, inflation hits. We have all the rise in interest rates. And so in the last couple of months that I've been driving around checking out houses out at Larson Ranch, we now don't have holes being dug for foundations. They have a couple hundred houses that are up and are getting finished off for people to be able to move in, but they haven't continued the rapid growth. So how long is that pause going to take? I don't have any idea how long that pause is going to be out. And I'm not sure if the home builders, the developers themselves even know, because they're going to have to kind of wait and watch and see what's going on with inflation. There's also growth out at Bradley Heights, which is just off of Bradley, south of the mill and our transportation center. There's all kinds of dirt being moved out there as well. They're getting all their infrastructure taken care of when they're going to build houses. We'll talk about that in a second, but with all the things that are happening with the inflation and the interest rates, we're going to kind of have to wait and see. So when Mr. Durr and I were talking about this just over the summer and at the end of the school year, it was looking like we're going to have all kinds of things happen. Now we're going to say that's probably limbo just a little bit, just because we don't know what's happening, but there is lots of developers that I continue to get paperwork on, and they're looking to get their development set up and ready to go. If anybody were to go to Colorado Springs, the website for Colorado Springs, coloradosprings.gov, there's a master plan, and that master plan, it shows where's the next areas for growth that they're planning for between now and like 2050. Our area is one of those red areas that are planning on growth. East and south is where the next area is going to go for Colorado Springs. So when I tell you I don't know when it's going to happen because of interest rates, I don't know, but it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's going to happen. It's going to come to us. We just don't know the exact time frame for when that's going to happen through some of those, just the interest rates and stuff. One of the other questions that will come up, I'm just trying to get some of these out ahead of time. Where's the water going to come from? That's a good question. We're not real sure where all the water is going to come from. But basically what's happened is we've got three different municipalities that we deal with. We deal with Colorado Springs, we deal with El Paso County, and also with the city of Fountain. And so we have growth in each of those three areas. We have, each of them have just a little bit different rules, but each of them have their own water. And so water itself is going to come from, and most of them get it from Colorado Springs, but we've also got Widefield water, and we've also got security water. And all of them have a limited amount of resources. You guys have probably seen in the paper and on the news that Fountain is saying that that's it, we're done, we're cutting off taps. They still have a little bit, but they are cutting off. They're not going to be able to, they're not going with huge, large developments because there's only so much water. And so these developments that we're going to go through have already secured what those taps are going to be so that they can go and have their growth, but then they're limited because there's only so much water to be able to go around. And so Colorado Springs is the main area that has the water. But each of those municipalities is getting close to the end of how much water they actually have to be able to continue helping out with developments. As we go through, one of the other questions comes up is how do we get land for schools? And so an allocation comes from developers, and so I base that off of, I do some calculations, and so what comes up on that is we base it off the number of homes, and there's a certain square footage that comes from, that we're allotted for each house within a development. Again, those three different municipalities have a little bit different number, but we take that number and we multiply it by how many houses are there. So if there's 1,000 houses and it's 500 square feet, you guys can start doing some math. We take that, divide it by the square feet in an acre, which is 43,560. All you quick math wizards out there, if you did that math real fast, you'd be able to get that real quick. And within that one tells us how many acres are we own by a school district, or by the developer for our schools. We get a certain amount for houses, we get more square footage for houses. We get less for for multifamily homes or apartments, but that's pretty much what it comes down to. So developers, by code, are obligated to give us land so that we can build schools. They don't build the schools for us, unfortunately, but they are required to give us land so that we can have schools within those neighborhoods. And where does money come from to build schools? Unfortunately, it comes from our community. It comes from our taxpayers. And so that's why back when we passed the bond to build Grand Mountain was $30+ million for us to build. It comes from the taxpayers. We would think that it should come from all the developers because of all the money they're making from all the houses and everything that they're putting up. But the developers are not required to build the schools for us. They're only required to give us the land so we have a place to build those schools. So we passed the bond to try to help build the school, and then we get into mill levies in order to help furnish the school with all the things it needs, including staff. And so those are a few things at the beginning. If we have questions at the end, I'll answer the best I can. But those are normally the ones that people start asking about. So we take a look at the map. I know it's very small from where you're at. But if you look at this red line, this is the outside edge of our school district. You can see it goes clear over into Fort Carson. Our east line is Meridian Road. South kind of goes down through behind Safeway down by Genetel through Cross Creek neighborhood. It's going to be going down into that section. And our north boundary up on this other side here on the east side goes all the way up to about the east gate of Peterson Field. So if you kind of take a look, you can see that obviously this isn't everything, but it kind of has a big J that goes around the Big Johnson Reservoir and the airport. That's basically what our school district is. So even not being able to read everything back there, you can see where all of our community's at. It's all over on this side of the J. But as we continue going through, all the growth is going to be happening mostly on the other side of the J as we continue to move forward. So the main development that we all know about is Larson Ranch, and Larson Ranch is pretty big. It's got several thousand homes in there, and it's still continuing to grow. So right now, right next to Grand Mountain, there's about 250 or so houses that have already been built. They've already been erected, so people are in those homes already. But overall, there's still almost 1,600 houses that are supposed to go in next to Grand Mountain. So when are those going to be taken care of? Well, we'll have to see what interest rates do, but they're going to continue building all the way from where you can see right next to Grand Mountain, all the way out to Meridian Road. Those are all going to be houses at some point in time as we move forward. The same developer owns the land from Larson Ranch all the way up to Bradley, and then all the way up to Drennan as well. Owns that whole side button up next to Meridian Road. And so within that one, the next development up is called Bull Hill, and that one is going to be over 3,000 houses. And then on the other side of Bradley Road up towards Drennan is going to be a development called Rolling Hills, and that one's scheduled to have over 4,000 houses. So when we start talking about where's water coming from, within this particular situation, as Mr. Durr and I had met with this developer, right now he has secured water for over 5,700 homes. He doesn't have the full 7,700 or whatever the whole full total is for that, but he's got about 5,700 taps available to him so that we can have water. His plan before all the inflation came up was at about 18 months. That was about 3 or 4 months ago that we met with him. He thought in about 18 months to 2 years they would continue on. They, meaning the developers out of Larson Ranch, that they would continue on moving from Larson Ranch and heading north up towards Bradley was where the growth was going to continue. If they are able to get back to their pace, as you guys know, that's an unprecedented pace of growth. That area was the fastest growing zip code in the United States for how fast they're putting up houses. If we go to any of our other developments, we see houses being put up. We see houses being built at the Glen and some other areas, but they don't grow nearly as fast as what those do. So we'll have to continue to monitor that one because that could be a whole lot of houses with a whole lot of kids. And we have about 3 school sites on each side for number 2 and number 3 there. We've got 5 with a possibility of a 6th within that development between those 2. Next one is Corvallis, and this one is located south of Fontaine and just to the west of Mark Shuffle. Also, it used to be called the Singer Ranch. We do have a school site in there. We have a 12-acre school site, and it butts right up next to the Glen. And the location of that school site is perfect because it sits right in the middle, so that would be a good walking neighborhood for anybody when that comes up. And then families that are in the Glen would also be able to go into that area as well. They're going to have about 1,100 homes going in there, have a little bit of multifamily. This development does have some commercial with it, At some point in time, there'll be a stoplight right at Larson Boulevard and Mark Shuffle. There'll be a stoplight there, and that side is where there's some commercial. There's a little bit on Fontaine, and then at Larson, right at the very beginning, I forgot to tell you that part. Right at the corner of Fontaine and Mark Shuffle on the southeast side, there's some commercial that's supposed to go in that area as well. Because that's kind of the thing. We have all these houses. Like, is anybody going to put a business down here? Think about it. If you had a coffee shop or a grocery store or a gas station, anything, you do really well down on that side of town. And so there is some that's on its way. I don't know what those commercial businesses will be yet. I just know that they're designated for commercial when it comes in. So that will be an elementary school site because it's 12 acres. By code, an elementary school has to be at least 10 acres in size. Middle school, junior high needs to be at least 20 acres. And high school, depending upon what municipality we're in, needs to be between 45 or 50 acres of land as we move forward. Number 5 is Glen East, and anybody who's driven over there knows that they're starting to get some building going around there as well again. Last time I was out there was about 25 new homes or so in Glen, and they still have many more to go, because they're going to go all the way up to that south line of Corvallis, and will continue moving to the west a little bit as well. The cottages at Mesa Ridge are right at as you're going into the big curve by Genitel. Powers stops technically, and Mesa Ridge Parkway goes from Mesa Ridge, goes around the curve, and then starts heading back to the east. It's right on the south side of the Glen over there, and so where Powers and Mesa Ridge Parkway meet is where this site is at. And this one's a little bit different because these are houses that are prefabricated, and then they're going to be attached with each other as well, kind of like a duplex type situation. And so they don't have a whole lot of acreage there, but they're gonna, this one, last I heard, will still continue to move forward. They've had lots of paperwork on that one. And these were, the special about these is these are rentals only. Nobody's gonna be able to buy these. This is something that you just rent. They'll have a clubhouse that you can lease out for evening and that type of thing. Trails in Aspen Ridge is another area that everybody sees lots of growth. This was located on the southeast corner of Bradley and Powers. And so within that one, there's 680 homes that are going in there, several houses in there already. We do not have a school site in there because it's basically in direct line of the flight path into the airport. And back when this development was coming about, the school board at the time had said, that's not safe, we don't want a school right in that direct flight path. So we have to bus all the kids out of that area, at least until we get, at least until Bradley Heights is able to come about. The newest one that I just got paperwork on last week is a place called The Villages at Widefield North. And so this one is directly on the opposite side of Bradley. So now it's at the northeast corner of Bradley and Powers. This one's going to be mostly apartments. It does have some single-family homes in there, and they're also going to have a little bit of commercial and some industry area. The intent of this one, when we talked with the developer on that, when I had communication with them, was to try to help all the business workers from Amazon and all of the Peak Innovation area to have a quick drive for a place to be able to go. This one is really close to touching the property out there by the mill that we have. So it's, you can kind of imagine that corner right there. It's not too far away from us. On their northeast boundary is pretty close to ours. Bradley Heights is the next one that I would probably expect when the day comes that we get to build a school, unless Bull Hill gets taken off. I would imagine that Bradley Heights would be one of the next areas we would probably be looking at a new school site. And so we have 2 sites in there. Originally we had one 30-acre site, and both schools were supposed to be on that 30 acres. Being in junior highs for 24 years, that doesn't sound like a very good thing to have both of them right next to each other on the exact same piece of property. And so we were able to negotiate to where there have some homes in between them. There's actually a couple blocks in between, and we ended up getting a little bit more space as well. So we have a 12-acre elementary site in there, which is kind of in the middle, and we also have a 23-acre middle school site in Bradley Heights as well. Back with timelines on that, Challenger Homes is who's going in there. And the first time when we were talking, they were expecting to have homes up by summer of 24. We'll see if that comes about, what happens with interest rates, if they're going to be able to make that or not. But they're still continuing to move dirt and get infrastructure within that area. But that whole development is really pretty big because it goes from where you can see the edge, the east edge of Trails at Aspen Ridge, all the way down to Mark Shuffle, and it starts heading all the way back down towards Fontaine. So that's a very large parcel of property. There is some Norwood property just to the west of it as well that I haven't gotten any paperwork on yet, but it will continue to grow as well. And so when I said Norwood, Mr. Dern and I had a conversation with Vice President Norwood. He come down, they bought 18,000 acres, which stretches from Woodman all the way down into Fountain, past us. And about half of that is in Widefield School District 3. And so when you start talking about 9,000 acres, that's a whole lot of houses. And so their projections start getting pretty crazy, like over 80,000 residents in our area, 35,000 homes. So we start talking about that, that's the real question comes in is, where's the water going to come for that? You got me, I have no idea where we're going to be able to get all that. But most of them have a little bit that's here. This Meadowworks development is just over 350 houses. And if you were to drive north on Mark Shuffle there, you know where Colorado Center's at, there's Larson Ranch, there's a big field in between, that's where they're going to put these houses. And the water for those houses is actually coming from a new water line from the airport. So Colorado Springs Water is going to be putting in a 24-inch water line, actually it's by the developer. They're going to bring it in from the airport, they're going to head east on Bradley till it hits Mark Shuffle, it'll continue heading north to Drennan, and then we'll curve up. So that will allow some of the developments, including Bradley Heights, to be able to get more water. So you think about a 24-inch water line, that's a lot of water. 24 inches, they're going to be able to push a lot of water into those developments. And that will help that section of our school district when it comes to water. Number 11 is one of the sites that I don't have any new paperwork on. When I look in my file folders, there's about 4 different names that this has gone through. It's been Signature, Norris, Apple Tree, Almagre is the latest one that I've heard. This one, the only information I really know about this one is from what other developers have talked to me about. So I have not gotten any new paperwork on Almagre, but basically Almagre is the area right there at Peaceful Valley Road that would connect in with Apple Tree Golf Course. It does stretch to the south just a little bit as well. And from previous negotiations back in the early 2000s, we do have 2 school sites in there, an elementary school and a middle school site as well. So the number of homes that are going to go there right now is a guess, because I'm not sure what it's going to be. I've seen anywhere from 1,500 to almost 3,000 homes in that particular area. Number 12 is not really a very big space for us. This one is called Amara. This one is still in the works. And so really Amara for us with our part of the school district, it's just a small rectangle in the very bottom right corner of our school district. But within that corner we have, they're planning on having 800 single-family homes, a few of them that are attached, kind of like a duplex, and then some apartments. District 8, unfortunately, has a school site right on the border there, right next to us. And so because we have all these kids that are going to be in this area, we have a school site just a little bit further in to make sure that we are able to be able to compete if that's what comes up and if that's what's necessary. The special thing about Amara is we don't have a whole ton. This development goes into Widefield School District, goes into Ellicott, over to the east of us. Most of that development is down in Fountain, District 8. But District 8, that's where the utility part comes in. They had planned, we're going to build all this down in Fountain, but Fountain Utilities said, hey, we're out of water, we're not going to have that many taps. So what Amara did is right now they're in negotiations to petition to try to become part of Colorado Springs and have Colorado Springs utilities come down so they can be annexed in. So that would be an awful long ways from Colorado Springs down into that area because it goes clear down to Squirrel Creek Road. But that's what that development is trying to do right now, and we'll see where that one ends up as well. Number 13 is Mesa Ridge East, and that is right on the big curve of Powers as we come around, and then we have Mesa Ridge Parkway that continues over. This area right here is Mesa Ridge development itself. This is another area where we had 2 schools on one site. We've been able to negotiate where we can at least get a road in between those. And again, we have an elementary and middle school in that particular area. And they'll have a mixture of single family and apartments. Crescent Canyon is kind of an older development. I haven't gotten a whole lot of paperwork on that one, but it's basically going from the south side of Mesa Ridge Parkway, south of Mesa Ridge High School, and heads on down into District 8 between the railroad tracks and all the businesses that are up on the hill there. Number 15 is right where Main Street dead ends, where we used to have a strip mall over there, and it all got taken out. Just on the other side of the hill is over 200 homes that were planned to go in there. I haven't had a whole ton on that one recently, but I did get paperwork on that last year, and I think this one even made the Fountain Valley News. It was in the paper as well on the front page about having some more homes in there. And then number 16 is the last one for the houses itself. This one's a small development called Haven Valley, and it's kind of right behind Pike Street Christian Church and Smith Plumbing and Heating. If you go back there, I'm trying to remember the name of the road. I had it and forgot it just a second ago. But anyway, there's not a whole lot there. There's only about 12 acres in there, and they're going to try to put about 98 houses. So I keep talking about elementaries and middle schools. I'm sure somebody's asking, where's the next high school? If we're going to have all these kids and all these high school or all these students coming in, where's our next high school? And so within those conversations that Mr. Gurn and I have had with Norwood, the next place that we would expect a high school to go would probably be on the southeast corner of Bradley and Mark Shuffle. Norwood owns that area as well, and that's because again, we only get so much acreage, and if we're going to say 50 acres is devoted to and designated for a high school, now that really starts to cut down on how many elementary sites you can have and how many middle school sites you can have. But as you can see, when we talk about our J, we have a little bit in our current Widefield community, and then as we continue over and we continue to branch out into having more new Widefield developing and coming in, you can see that most of that growth is going to be over on the south and east side of our school district. So just from some numbers, I'm not sure how everybody can see that, but as you go through, we end up having over 22,000 dwelling units that would be looking to come in, and we have about 14 sites out of those right now that are designated for us to be able to build. Now, the last number that we've had for construction was $420 a square foot for new construction costs. And so if we say, I was at Janitel for a long time, Janitel is 96,000 square feet. We go easier math, we say it's 100,000 square feet at $420 a square foot. All of our math people out there, how much is that? Come on, students, I know you've been going. So it's 42 million. So that would be about 42 million just to build a middle school. And things are not getting cheaper. It just keeps getting more expensive, and even one of the construction people I was in a meeting with today said costs were going up almost to $450 a square foot from materials and trying to get things together. So when we say 14 sites, we have 14 sites, and at some point in time we'll need to make sure we get those in there, but that's an awful lot of money. And so we'll see how that all ends up working out for us, but we will have a need if we start getting any of these that start coming about, we're going to have that need. The other thing we have is apartments, and for a little bit, that's all I was getting was paperwork on apartments. My goodness sakes, how many do we have coming in? So within this one, too far. So within this one, the Carousel Apartments or Garrison by Watermark, they've had two different names on that. Those apartments are right here next to the Black Bear Diner, just south of Mesa Ridge, right on the other side of Mesa Ridge Parkway. Probably somebody who lives in those, they'd probably be able to look out their window and be able to see Janitel and Mesa Ridge High School from their particular location. Powers and Grinnell is pretty obvious, Powers and Grinnell, but that development or that apartment complex is on the southeast corner, just catty corner from Amazon. So it's going to be southeast corner of Powers and Grinnell. There's over 300 apartments that are supposed to go in that particular area. Grinnell Apartments, there's just over 1 acre of blank land right next to the District 3 Credit Union, and there's supposed to be about 22 apartments going in there, but if I remember correctly, this would be more like the living that's just a little bit further south versus a tall apartment complex. Mesa Ridge Apartments themselves, if we think of Mesa Ridge, there's a road that goes right next to the softball field, up to the football field, up to the tennis courts, and just on that side between Mesa Ridge and Lowe's, that blank area that everybody likes to park in when they go to Mesa Ridge events, which we trespass on all the time because that's where most of us park, is going to be designated right now to go to some apartments, and there's about 230 of those. Just to the north of that was Markets Mesa Ridge. Originally, the plan that came in for that one was single-family homes, but that area is not designated for single-family homes, so it either has to be multifamily or it's supposed to be retail. And so we'll see what the developers come back with from their original times of going in. And then when we get to Southport Ridge, clear down on the far south end, there's about 250 apartments supposed to go in there and some more commercial in that area as well. So when we talk about all these things, how does that translate out? Well, we have some predictor numbers. They fluctuate a little bit, but they're fairly consistent as we see things as we move across the district. And so if all of these were to come about, all these are not going to come about in the next 5 years. This is going to be a while before all these things come to fruition. Talking with the developer at Larson Ranch, he said up to the point that they were at, it took 10 years to get from development to where they're at. So we're talking a while before all this is going to come about. but some of them are gonna start before others, and are gonna affect our district before others. Talking over 5,000, almost 6,000 elementary students, over 2,000 junior high kids, and probably looking at over 3,000 more high school students coming in to us as well at some point in time. So that covers growth in the areas that I know about. Does anybody have any questions or anything I can try to help answer before we continue on with the meeting? Was that thorough? That's pretty good. That's pretty good, Mr. Chair. Was that thorough? You don't have any questions? Okay, so again, I don't know how long it's going to take, guys, but it is a matter of when it's going to happen. And so we'll just watch interest rates. We'll see how things keep going. We'll see if we keep getting water around. But right now, the areas that have the water, those developments that have it designated already, it's designated to them, which is what's going to prevent others from being able to get it. And most of those sites that I talked about already have their water. So we'll just hang on and see what happens. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.